Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, we are learning more about just how devastating last week's elections were for the Republican Party. And I have to tell you, the details are pretty delicious. So, there are various exit polls that have come out, there's final vote tallies, interviews with voters by various news outlets, and they all show how much erosion there was among the groups that specifically put Donald Trump back in the White House. And Republican strategists and some lawmakers are really panicking. If they're honest, they're telling the truth and they're panicking because unlike all of these MAGA influencers that we see out there, strategists and elected officials, they have to deal with reality. They have to accept and dissect the reality of the situation so that they can win the next election. They can't afford all this magical thinking that we're seeing on the MAGA, celebrity front where they're trying to convince everyone. They're like Leslie Nielsen in that GIF or in the meme, where he's like, "Oh, everybody go home. Nothing to see here." It's like there's an explosion in the background, fire and everything. So anyway, Politico went out and they spoke with some of these GOP strategists who admit how bad it was last Tuesday. So one of them was directly involved in the Virginia elections, and he told Politico, let me bring this up for you guys. This is the article if you want to go read the whole thing. It's very interesting. But he told this Politico journalist, quote, "This blew past our worst case scenario of everything." He said in the end that, Democrats just slaughtered them. Like it just wasn't even close. This is a problem. And basically, one of the reasons for this is that not only did Democrats pick up the governor's seat, right, by a by a pretty large margin, large marge. But they also flipped 13 seats in the House of Delegates. I know I mentioned last week it was 10. That was like the final count that I saw. It has now been revised up to 13. And out of that 13, 5 districts went for Trump last year. So 5 districts just flipped on him. They were like, nope, we know what we said a year ago, but we've changed our minds. Tim Anderson, he is a Republican. He actually lost one of those delegate races, and he spoke with Politico as well. And he said, quote, "They just smoked us. I mean, gosh, they wiped us off the map. It's going to take 4 years to rebuild what happened on Tuesday." And then Democrats also picked up a county executive seat in Erie County, Pennsylvania. Trump won that district as well. So this was everywhere. Don't let MAGA fool you. I see the comments here in my comment section. I see them on social media. They're all just such little sheep. It is so sad. They're parrots and sheep. They're a pair sheep. they're a sheep rut. I don't know. We'll come up with a word to combine the two. But anyway, all they do is regurgitate what Donald Trump and JD Vance say. They just repeat everything without doing any kind of research, without knowing what the hell they're talking about. But anyway, back to this report. So last week, I mentioned to you guys how Democrats broke the Republican supermajority in the Mississippi State Senate because they won 2 seats. Well, they actually ended up winning 3 seats in that state. So they won 2 in the Senate, which again broke the supermajority, but they also won a state house seat. So Mississippi, I mean, they again keep trying to say, oh, it's all blue states, it's all blue areas. Yeah, okay, Mississippi, guys. Yeah. Idiots. Anyway, check out these charts. So the first one I'm going to show you, this was created by G. Elliott Morris. He is an analyst and he compiles all this data from various reports and polling and what have you. Well, he broke down all of this information by demographics. So look at this. So this is every single group that shifted toward the Democrats in the Virginia elections. So as you can see here, even the groups that Democrats didn't win in the state of Virginia, they still shifted towards the left. They still shifted to Abigail Spanberger. Even white and male voters. I mean, look at that. It's like every single demographic, Republicans lost some of the amount that they had gained last year even. So, the groups that had always been with them shifted, but the groups that had moved towards them significantly last year have moved significantly back in the other direction. And they're still in positive territory, like I said, with white and male demographics, but that was cut in half. Their numbers from 2024 to this year is half, literally, in both of those. And then, as you can see here, the biggest shifts came from Asian voters, Gen Z, Hispanic voters, also those listed as other for their ethnicity. So Asians, as you can see, if you can't make it out, they moved 42 points towards the Democrats. Gen Z, they also moved significantly, 22 points towards the Democrats. The other group, I don't know who all, I don't know who would be in that group of other, but they shifted 41 points. Which other group? Let's see. Hispanics shifted 20 points towards the Democrats. So Trump and the Republicans are blowing it big time. And they can't simply win with white and male voters, and they know that. So, that's why Trump is panicking right now. That's why he's like one of those, I don't know what you call it, those things that you see at the at car lots, like the big balloon guy who's like, oh, like all over the place. That's what Donald Trump is doing. He's just like, oh, let's do 50-year mortgages. Oh, let's do $2,000 tariff rebates. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like, he doesn't know what to do. He is in panic mode. It's very obvious. This next chart I want to share with you, it should panic them even more. So this next chart shows how much Mikey Sherrill outperformed Kamala Harris in New Jersey and how much she did way better than Kamala Harris in one specific county than Donald Trump won. So look at these numbers. Harris won Union City by 17 points. Sherrill bumped that up to 69. Patterson County, down at the bottom, Harris beat Trump there by 28. Sherrill won it by 71. That is insane in the membrane. And then, like I said, I think the most impressive one is Passaic County, that Trump won by 7 points just last year, and Sherrill picked it up by 26. This is an off-year special elections. We have to keep that in mind. Like, you don't see this kind of turnout. You don't see this kind of shift normally. I mean, people are typically just asleep on all of this stuff. So, I mean, this is just unbelievable. And because of the Latino support that Trump picked up last year, that's why he won Passaic County that I just showed you guys, because it has as I mentioned this in another video, I think it's something like 40% Hispanic population in that county. So that's exactly why he won it, and that's why the Democrat won it this time. And Hispanic voters overwhelmingly also voted in favor of Prop 50 in California. So CNN did their own exit poll, and they showed that approximately 70% of Hispanic residents voted in favor of the redistricting measure. It's so crystal clear that everything Donald Trump is doing is backfiring, right? Sending ICE and then sending the National Guard and the Marines to California to terrorize people and ripping apart families in Hispanic neighborhoods. It is so, and not even just Hispanic families. Like there was a couple in Orange County, California, where I grew up. They had been in California, or they had been in the United States, I should say. I don't know specifically if they had been in California, but they had been here in the United States for something like 30 years. They had raised their children here. They had no criminal record. Donald Trump, for no reason, rounded them up and deported them because they had overstayed their visa or something like that decades ago, have never committed a crime. So this is the kind of stuff that people are watching and going, this is not what I voted for. I wanted you to take the criminals out of the country, but I did not elect you to destroy happy families that are causing no problems, that are, helping our economy, they're contributing to our society. So yeah, this is totally backfiring. And 2 Democrats even won re-election for the city council in Boise, Idaho. So take a look at this. This was the article that came out in Raw Story. And Republicans would argue, oh, well, Boise is a blue town, maybe a red state, but it's a blue. Idaho is as red as they come. And what makes these wins, these 2 seats that they were able to hold on to, so important and so telling is that these 2 city council members were vocal proponents of raising a rainbow pride flag outside of City Hall. So it's not working anymore. All of their, anti-LGBTQ stuff and all of the, anti-trans fright that they're trying to push down everybody's throat, people aren't buying it. People aren't giving a damn anymore. They're like, I can't pay my bills. Why should I care about trans people when I cannot afford to put food on the table for my children? And MAGA can claim all they want that, oh, this wasn't a referendum on Trump. That's what you're going to hear. I've been hearing it nonstop, been seeing it on social media. Facts are facts. And the fact is, these elections had everything to do with Donald Trump and his failing regime. So NBC, they conducted an exit poll and they asked Virginia and New Jersey voters how they feel about the way things are going in our country right now. Take a look at this, you guys. 65% of New Jersey voters say they're either angry or dissatisfied. Virginia residents, 63% said the same thing. In regard to immigration and deportations, they asked people about that as well. A slim majority of both those states, New Jersey and Virginia voters, said that the Trump administration is going too far. And 61% of New York City residents and 59% of Californians said they don't want their state leaders to cooperate with Trump on immigration. So very, very clear mandate to the Democrats. And check out how much voters shifted towards the Democrats in the Virginia race. Look at this. So as you can see here, again, this is the Abigail Spanberger race against winsome Earle-Sears, who is now known as losesome Earle-Sears. So this shows of the people who voted for Kamala Harris, 97% stuck with the Democrats. On the other hand, out of the people who voted for Trump last year, 6% moved to the Democrats. You also have 49% of the people who voted for someone other than Kamala Harris or Trump. They cast their ballot for Abigail Spanberger. And 57% of the people who sat out last year's election voted for Spanberger. So those people said, I'm not interested in Trump or in Harris. I'm going to sit it out. Just going to stay home. I choose the couch. And they're watching what's happening and they're like, no, I got to get off my ass and go vote for the Democrats because this is out of control. This is insane. And I mean, 6% of Trump voters flipped in Virginia. They're like, yeah, no, I'm out. And here's who helped to secure the New Jersey governor's race for Mikey Sherrill. So take a look at this one. 66% of her votes, I should say 66% of voters under the age of 30 voted for her, so Gen Z. 66% of first-time voters came out and voted for her. 59% of women and 52% of independents. The Associated Press also conducted an exit poll, and theirs was really substantial. So they went out and they surveyed 17,000 voters in New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City. And they found that very few people actually voted to support Trump. Look at this. This tells you everything. So yes, a plurality or majority of people said, my vote wasn't about Trump at all. But look at how few people actually came out to support him. That is hashtag sad in all caps. I mean, that is so bad. And so even though a lot of people, like I said, they were like, no, it really has nothing to do with Trump. It is clear from these numbers, the people who are anti-Trump, who are coming out in opposition of him, are far more energized than the people who are pro-Trump. And in California, it was even worse. The Associated Press said that 1 out of every 10 California voters cast their ballot, their Prop 50 ballot, to support Trump. Only 10%. And he and his minions think that they can win in California. That everything's changed so much that he's so popular in California. They're delusional. And then check this out. So young voters, this is about the New York mayoral race, New York City. Young voters were more enthused to come out and vote in that election than in the past two elections, 2017 or 2021. The young voters under the age of, 45 there? So it's not even just Gen Z, it's under the age of 45. They were almost on par with the over 45 crowd, which is typically the people who come out to vote the most. So this is a really good lesson to all of the people who say, oh, who really cares about young voters? They don't matter. They don't show up to vote anyway. No, they do. They do show up when you give them a candidate that they can be excited about. And this is how I know for a fact, stuff like that, numbers like that, that's how I know for a fact that Bernie would have easily beaten Trump. Would have beaten him in 2016, would have beaten him in 20. He would have even sailed through to a re-election in 2024 if he had won in 2020. But for the Democrats, the establishment, putting their thumb on the scale and manipulating things behind the scenes and refusing to give him electoral votes and what have you in the first election and playing all kinds of games with the funding, or, going behind everybody's back and telling everybody to drop out so that Biden could win in 2020. Had none of that happened, we wouldn't be in this situation. And if you still think that it's Bernie Sanders and his supporters, which, by the way, includes me, who caused a Trump election, who was responsible for Trump winning. First of all, I voted for Hillary Clinton against my best judgment in 2016, and I voted for Biden in 2020. So no, it is not Bernie and it is not progressives. It is the shitty candidates that the Democrats keep trying to shove down our throats over and over again. and telling us what we should be doing instead of allowing us to dictate what we want. So anyway, first-time voters also showed up for Mamdani in a pretty stunning amount. So according to G. Elliott Morris, 20% of the voters who cast ballots in New York City last week had never voted before. And out of that 20%, Mamdani won 66% of them. Cuomo got only 30% of first-time voters. Morris also said that Mamdani won 2/3 of the voters who said that they have an unfavorable view of both parties. It has never been more clear. People want something new. People want their finances taken care of. They want to see inflation come down. They want some breathing room. They're tired of the wealthy getting everything and anything they want just handed to them on a silver platter, while we, the average Americans, are told, oh, we can't afford it. We can't afford. How are you going to pay for that? We're done. We're done. It's over. The jig is up. So anyway, the Wall Street Journal, they had a slightly different take on the election. So they're saying, oh, yeah, well, Democrats won in all the wealthy areas, the wealthy districts, but, it's the middle class that they need to do better with, because it just didn't look like they picked up some seats and they, won some of those people over, but it wasn't by the margin that you saw in the wealthy areas. And, they may have some legitimate point there. I did look at their numbers, and in some areas, yeah, it was true. However, they admitted, like I said, that Virginia districts filled with those middle-class voters swung to the Democrats. So there was still movement. And they went out and they spoke with some voters who really highlight how Donald Trump's coalition from just last year is just falling apart. It is completely coming apart at the seams, excuse me. So case in point, 39-year-old man named Juan Bowman. They spoke with this guy. He voted for Trump last year, but he cast his ballot for Democrat Abigail Spanberger last week. And here is why. So Bowman cited grocery prices. He also mentioned cuts that the government has made. And that is why he's unhappy with Trump, because evidently Bowman has an autistic son, and he lost some of his son's government services this year because of the cuts made by Donald Trump and the Republicans. And Bowman, as you can see here, he said, quote, they've thrown him to the wolves, meaning his son. So not good. Not good. Another voter named Gary Payne, he decided to sit out the election this year. He also voted for Donald Trump last year, though, and Payne was a pretty big-time Trump supporter. So the Wall Street Journal wrote, I'll bring this up for you, quote, Payne was once an active Trump loyalist. He set up roadside MAGA tents across the country to sell shirts and flags for the Republican Party. But like Bowman, his enthusiasm has turned sour because of high cost. Payne said his rent went up $150 in June. A promised raise never came, though, because his company just can't afford it, in quotes, after tariffs hurt its business. He added, I don't like any of the candidates. So not only is his cost of living still going up, but now he missed out on a raise because of Donald Trump, specifically because of Donald Trump's tariffs. So, like I've said before, we don't need to pick up all of these people. We just need to, nibble around the edges. We just need to peel off a few people to vote for the Democrats. And then if a bunch of other people stay home, Democrats win. The Journal also spoke with New Jersey voters who also flipped on Trump. So They spoke with a man named Tim Meadows, and he's very interesting. He was a Republican representative. He actually was part of the governing council in an area of the state in the early 2010s. But he voted for Mikey Sherrill last Tuesday. Now, the Journal didn't say if Meadows ever voted for Trump, but he told the Journal that his vote this year was in direct opposition to Trump and MAGA. And Meadows said that he chose not to vote for the Republican gubernatorial candidate because, quote, I just felt like he was too MAGA, or he was a little too MAGA. So yeah, it's turning people off. And I also have the story to share with you real quick before I let you go of 65-year-old lifelong Republican. Her name is Barbara Pizzali. I think that's how you pronounce it. She also sat out the New Jersey election last week, and she voted for Trump in 2016, but she must be turned off on him since then because she told the Journal, quote, I don't feel like anything he's done, I don't feel he's done anything except cause more chaos. And Mikey Sherrill's message didn't really resonate with her, but she couldn't bring herself to vote for Jack Ciattarelli either because she said, quote, I just didn't want to vote for someone to support Donald Trump. Sorry, yeah, to support, not who supports Donald Trump, but to support Donald Trump. So again, Republicans can say until they're blue in the face, oh, this had nothing to do with Trump. Trump wasn't on the ballot. That's why we lost. No, the fact of the matter is he was on the ballot. He absolutely was on the ballot. This was a referendum on Donald Trump, on his cruel and incompetent administration. So again, they can bullshit, they can lie all they want, but that's the fact. So they can keep going down this road. Like I said, I kind of hope they do because they're just destroying themselves from the inside out. So keep doing it, Republicans. Stick with him. Let's see where it gets you in another year. All right, I will let you all know when I have more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe to the channel if you have not. Please donate if you possibly can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.